Hello, we are streaming live and recording this live to you from Adel Nation, from Aloha Ayni Living. This is the 81st conversation of Ayni Living Conversations. Today we're talking about governance, the third session we do regarding the principles, the governance principles of the great principle. And this is a beautiful set of channelings and teachings and descriptions of how the universe works, brought to you by the inspiration and by the divine channeling of Sacred Blue Heron Woman. She's with us tonight, and I am Julian Catari from Jalapa, Veracruz. And well, here we are. Welcome everyone, and welcome Ingrid.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we left off I think we ended with the 8th governance principle of Ayni, reciprocity, and so we'll start tonight with the 9th, the governance of polarity.
Okay.
So everywhere we turn, there's polarity, the process, the gradient of polarity, positive to negative poles. Mm-hmm. Some people call it yin yang. We could call it light dark, cold hot. All things have two aspects, two poles. So time can be divided into night and day. Place can be space, can be divided into earth and heaven. Season into inactive periods like fall and winter, and active periods like spring and summer. Species into male and female, temperature into hot and cold, weight into light and heavy, and so on. Inside, outside, down and up, passive and active, empty and full, all are examples of two aspects of a gradient. And this gradient always exists in relation to each other because it's a gradient. It's not polar opposite, it's a gradient, right? It's a gradient of flow.
Important to mutually point out.
What?
Because we fall into these black and white kind of mindset, and it's always important to point out that there's a gradient always in everything.
Yeah, we fall into this, and we're going to talk about this. The old ones gave me wisdom to talk about this polarity, this duality mindset, the black and white mindset we operate out of. But the poles create each other, they transform into each other, and some people will tell you this governance principle can be transcended. It cannot be. Life cannot exist without polarity, without a gradient. It just can't. And polarity is not the same as duality.
Okay.
So duality is this black and white world we create of right versus wrong, good versus evil. That's not polarity. That's duality. That makes us take stances around our poles that we think are poles, and we'll talk about those later from messages from the old ones. So then the next governance principle is that of gender, because we see that everything in this world has two genders, the male and the female. It's not manifest only us in humans. It's throughout all our animal relatives, our plant, tree, rock, mineral relatives, as well as in our electrons and our electrical and magnetic currents. It's manifest in our minds and bodies. Each and every one of us has both genders in us, even if we are in a male body or a female body. We still have both genders. Each of our minds has the logical self-consciousness of the male gender and the intuitive subconsciousness of the female gender. And in our human species, we have men and women, each being like two halves of a sphere. And when they come together, they combine to form a whole sphere. And each half sphere is a whole sphere in itself. It's kind of a, that's, as I was saying that, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I want to say. That's not true. That's incomplete and inaccurate. Each of us is a whole sphere, but when we come together, we create a stronger sphere together.
Yeah.
It has been in our programming that we unite male and female for the purpose of procreation, for the propagation of our species. And while this is a really great purpose, there's still a much greater purpose to be gained through the uniting. And the ultimate purpose is that by association, through association, we can bring out the latent qualities in each other, the best in each other, so to speak, the divineness of each other by working through our differences. So, like the male is usually an outward expression of male qualities, which would be like self-reliance and logic. Those are also in women, but not so strong. So therefore, when men and women come together, it's the man's kind of task, kind of calling to draw that out of the woman, while hers is to draw out the intuitive feeling of the man, so that together we can function, fulfill our fullest potential much better than we can alone. So we have a few examples of the way we come together. We see one where the young couple is so in love that quotes in love that they have no room for anybody else in the world, and they're so absorbed with each other that they just never turn to face the world and give of themselves. So that can't last, because they don't ever become individuated. They don't ever be of service. They're just so focused on each other. Their only focus is each other. Then pattern 2 is a lot more common. Say you have a man who loves a woman, or a woman who loves a man, and his or her the opposite. The affections are not so reciprocated, but they get married anyway for the right purpose. For they would like, oh, we made a baby together, so we better get married. Because they're not. Because one of them is indifferent to the other, there's no drawing out the best qualities in each other. So they each have to work out their completion, their wholeness by themselves instead of doing it together. And then pattern number 3 is the people who are on the brink of divorce, who turn their backs on each other. Something other than love brought them together, and such a relationship is an unhappy one, and probably an utter failure in working out wholeness together. So they seek out love outside their relationship, and they're of no use to each other. So basically, the principle, the governance of polarity, is for us to work out, to bring to each other wholeness, to draw out the latent qualities of wholeness in each other that are submerged, so to speak, because you're a man and I'm a woman. So and because you're an earth element and I'm a metal element, or whatever, we're born with the full complement, but things get submerged, things get repressed over time through programming. And so the purpose of the uniting is for us to draw these out in each other. And that's the purpose of gender also. is for the uniting. And now, and this does not mean I'm anti-gay or anti-lesbian or anything like that. I truly believe that I have nothing against homosexual, so to speak, relationships, because I believe that we incarnate. Sometimes I can incarnate as a female in a man's body. So,
or we're free to do whatever we want.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm not saying that. It's still the uniting, whether it's man, or woman, or male, female, the uniting is still there to bring each other's wholeness out for each other, on behalf of each other, and on behalf of the whole.
The natural model is just so much more wholesome and rich than anything else, really.
Yeah.
It's made, I mean, we're naturally made to be as rich as we can. Now, the ancient model of domination, because I think we're now in a version 2.0 or 1.9 of the ancient domination model, kind of took that and made it into like this forceful kind of bad thing.
Right.
So that's why there's this inherent wanting to free yourself from that old heteronormative model, but then it's also a way and take you into this 2.0 version of whatever they're trying to push with propaganda of trans everything and gay everything.
I don't pay any attention to that, because that's all falling away. That's all splitting apart, falling away. As a matter of fact, at this point, we keep hearing from people, well, the yang is so out of balance, and I've even said that up until a few days ago. The yang is out of balance, and as I've gone deeper, as I've allowed myself to go deeper into myself, I realize that in the living world, yin and yang are fully in balance. They're operating exactly as they should be. What's drawn us out of balance is that we're shrink wrapped in this eggshell of domination, of imperial colonialism, of mechanical, being a mechanical world. So you have Rupert Sheldrake over here with his theories of morphogenic fields. You have Lynn McTaggart and the others with the quantum field, and never once does anyone mention the elementals or the entelechy, the angels, the divine cosmic blueprint, and all the spirit being helpers that are involved in it to bring it even in Mother Earth's surface, all the way down to her core, the elemental beings. And we're going to go into that deeper again at another point, because I have found so much more.
And they're obviously not into and I think that's why they're known, is because as soon as you get limited, so you have to you become limited, you stick. So that's what the system kind of propagates naturally, a limited thing.
Yeah, they're trying to expand the deadening system, the system that's falling apart, into this without actually incorporating every aspect of it, which is part of the wholeness. We have to bring all this together.
I totally agree.
So, okay, governance principle number 12 is unconditional love, or the Greek word would be agapeo or munai. So no matter what the circumstance, always meet everything and everybody with love would be the mantra for this. All great teachers of humanity have had their teachings based on love. They loved human beings. They taught human beings how to love. And we see in these teachings only the emotional, the altruistic, the ideal, and then tend to shun this as it doesn't make us a prophet. And we miss the immense practical value behind munai, behind agapeo. One of our guiding processes, our governances, is that of vibration. Love is a vibration. It's also a neurotransmitter. So is hatred and jealousy. So suppose someone sends you a vibration of hatred or jealousy, it has to penetrate your field. Some of the work I've done, it penetrates your field as an anger spear. You can direct anger spears at yourself, and others can direct anger spears at you. And sometimes, a lot of times, they're not even directed at you personally. It's like you're walking by somebody on the street, especially mostly in the city. You're walking by someone on the street who's very angry, and these anger spears penetrate your field. These jealousy spears penetrate your auric field, and they're there. Mm-hmm. They get stuck there because you allow them to get stuck there. Yeah. It makes us, so now let's say it penetrates, you feel the vibration, it arouses hatred or jealousy in you. So now you have 2 units of hatred, jealousy vibrating. You're uncomfortable, so you throw it back out. And now another person has 4 units, because every time you hand it off, it doubles. Okay. The number of units these vibrations or neurotransmitters exchange continues to grow in geometrical progression. And when both parties have reached a limit of endurance with the hatred or jealousy, they explode, throwing off a whole basket full of hatred and jealousy. And there's probably going to be a fight. Whether it's between the two, you might not even know each other. You might have just been ships passing in the night, so to speak, strangers passing on the street, but this built. The more you toss out there, and it comes back to you, because if you don't know what radio station you're tuned to picking up whatever, right? So somehow, some way, by the end of the day, somebody's going to end up with an entire basket full of anger or jealousy that wasn't theirs, and then they dump it on their nearest loved one so they can be rid of it. And it, right? So for centuries, we have gotten rid of our negative vibrations this way without paying attention. It's not practical because it weakens both parties and injures beyond repair. So now it's time to apply the process of unconditional love, or munai. So let's say you're walking by a person, or your spouse or your loved one sends you a unit of hatred and jealousy. When you feel it flow into your field, you can let it flow through and meet it with love. Now you're not tossing back a double dose instead of hatred or jealousy, instead you're sending love. That person might try again because it didn't work, sending a stronger dose, yet if you continue to respond with love, eventually the sender will deplete their own reserves of hatred and jealousy they possess in the moment. So this shows us how much more unconditional love how much more powerful unconditional love can be. And some people consider it a weakness not to strike back. On the contrary, it's much more difficult to choose to not strike back, and takes a great deal of strength and willpower to not strike back, and instead to meet the incoming hatred and jealousy with love. So the more we apply this process in our lives, the stronger our munai becomes, and harmony is established as the norm. So munai, as you know, is from the Quechua language. It's a verb or an action that means to love, but it's also a noun or a description of a state of love, which is unconditional, eternal, love without thinking or reasoning, and it implies so much more than that. Munai is, for the Quero Inca shamans, munai is one of the 3 pillars that supports one's path in becoming a keeper of our commonwealth of metal, wood, earth, and water. It's not only a kind of love, the meaning is intertwined with willpower and is a process in working with infinite levels of divine willpower. Munai has been remembered by the Inca shamans as being the force that lifted the giant megalithic stones at sacred sites into place in ancient times, and it is the sort of will that moves mountains. It's an energetic power that by far exceeds physical power. It is the power that derives from the energetic living fields that animate our universe. It is a biological force. And the energy of Munai is located in our heart center. For us to work with our own Munai is a process of being in our own power as self-governed, connected, pure, primal forces of creation. It's not an emotion. Munai is a way of being, respectful, appreciative of everyone and everything. We can speak many languages with the heart, and we can communicate with all of creation in this way. So to walk in the power, to walk in Munai is to walk in the power of love, to walk your own walk, the path of living from your heart and fulfilling your destiny. But we must be willing to heal our hearts, to open our hearts. That is more important. The healing's another $1 million buzzword that no one knows what the hell it means. Open our own hearts, to learn to trust ourselves.
That's powerful.
Opening more and more every day to be exposed fully, vulnerable to ourselves and each other.
Yeah, you're like pinning exactly what nobody ever was able to pin down and say in a few words. That's awesome. Amazing.
So as we clear the layers of heavy energy or blockages from our heart, our sacred sight becomes more and more clear, and we'll be able to see others more lucidly instead of judging them or having preconceptions about them. Once we face our pain and open our heart more and more, we all have the Munai necessary, which is one of the divine essences. So it's one of our essential essences, to create deeper and deeper connections and relationships with all of life. When we think about the application of love, we have a tendency to place it more in the realm of emotions. But when we understand that love and all these principles are all the same thing, we will get to those places where when our emotions appear to be ruffled and rattled, we will remember that things are not out of control, that there's nothing that can hurt or harm us, and that everything is in divine order. And through Munai, when we're walking in Munai, we understand that everything is a unitary wholeness, that all things come together in divine order. So our judgments, our criticisms, and confusions about why things are the way they are will just subside. And we no longer try to separate ourselves out from the things that we don't like. And we're actually going to talk about that more from the old ones tonight. We simply embrace the whole of it. And that's what Munai is. Love, Munai, aloha is the power that unifies and brings everything to wholeness.
Wow.
So governance number 13, the governance of free will, choice, and curiosity. So when you move to make someone else wrong, you are projecting your unhealed parts onto them. The same is true of when you move to make someone else your savior, you have now given your choice away and denigrated yourself. The saying is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And this is true for all of us. Mm-hmm. But we like to say, well, it's because of this teacher that I'm the way I am, that I've made all this progress that I have. And we don't ever stop to consider the fact that we made the choice to drink of the spiritual guru's teachings, right? We made the choice to take it in. When we say, well, it's because of them, we invalidate our choice and our will, and we make it someone else's. And that's about all. There will be more wisdom flowing on that one. That's just all that came through for now. But we have, when we talk about cosmology, a lot of people say, well, the planets made me. No. So, as you know, I left you voice messages about this upcoming hybrid solar eclipse that's happening in 8 days on the 20th. People say, well, it's happening over Australia. It's not going to affect us. That's crap. It does. It affects us worldwide. So this hybrid solar eclipse is first a ring of fire, where the moon is a little smaller than the sun. So we see a ring of fire around the moon. It's going to be interesting to see how many volcanoes in the ring of fire this eclipse triggers. Yeah. And then total, and then annular. So they call this progression a hybrid. The last time this happened was November 3 of 2013. November 3, 2013. December 4 of 2014, I put my belongings on a truck and headed for Oklahoma to fulfill my entelechy. That is what it triggers. That's choice. I was being pushed by this energy. But if I had not made the choice, I'd still be in Washington, not fulfilling my entelechy, my destiny. So this is the thing. And I gave up my motorcycle. I gave up my hot tub. I gave up all kinds of things so I could follow the plan, follow the path, follow the path of Aloha Ayni living. And that's part of the energy of eclipses, but it's not going to force you to if you don't make the choice to follow the way. So this is why it's a governance principle, because this is free will, free choice. So let's go into curiosity. Children jump and play around, curious, more curious than adults. They take things apart just for the sheer pleasure of taking them apart, trying to figure out how they work. What are they doing? Well, they're learning. They're looking, a little like us when we seek truth, but they do it in a lively way, quite fully, as they are spontaneous and joyful. They're looking at the truth. They're dealing with the truth, since truth is presented to them all the time until an adult gets in the way with programming. They're fully in the now. They present an open heart with joy, spontaneity, and lightness. And most of the time, they don't have a clue why they're doing what they do. They just do it for the sheer joy of doing it. And that's curiosity. They are totally absorbed in the unfoldment of what they're doing with a sense of wonder, and they love the process. There's a word again, it's a process. Curiosity isn't goal-oriented. You're not looking for something, you're just looking. For the sheer joy of looking to see something new, to experience, right? So curiosity is clearly related to the truth. And loving, the process of curiosity itself is manifested as joy, because curiosity is an activity of the heart. The spirit of truth that curiosity is again, not goal-oriented, and it has no attachment to the outcome of the desire. You might be looking because you have this desire for something. So you might be looking for something just for the sheer joy of looking for it. But if you don't have an attachment to, I'm going to get it, I'm going to die if I don't get this thing I'm looking for, then that's not curiosity anymore.
Yeah.
It's 100% involvement in the present, curiosity. It doesn't reject pain or pleasure. The pain doesn't have to go. You're just curious about the pain you're experiencing, as well as the pleasure you might experience. Curiosity can't be in the future because it's a process of the present moment that involves appreciation of everything we're experiencing right now. So when we humans are curious, we are whole and happy doing what we are made to do, and we are free in every moment that we are completely curious. We're completely in love in every moment that we're in curiosity. And who are we in love with? Who knows? We're just in love with whatever happens to be there. We're in love with ourselves and our existence. We're completely in love, and that sounds very egoic, but it's not, because it's not an arrogant love. And you've heard me say this to you many times. I'm just so in love with this process. This is just so cool. Mm-hmm. In that way, I am totally in love with myself, but it's not an arrogance. It's I'm in love with myself because I'm so open and so curious, and not saying I'm better than anybody. It's just a state of being, right? So there's one day, this man named Isa ibn Maryam, which is the Arabic word for Jesus, saw some people. He was walking along the road, saw some people sitting miserably on a wall by the roadside. He asked, "What's your affliction? Why are you so miserable?" They said, "We have become like this through our fear of hell." So he went on his way, continued on his walk, and then saw a group of people grouped disconsolately in various postures by the wayside. He asked them, "What is your affliction? Why are you like this?" They said, "Well, our desire for paradise has made us like this." he continued on his walk, and he came upon a third group of people. They looked like they had endured a whole lot, but their faces shone with joy. They just emanated radiance and joy. And he asked them, what has made you like this? And they said, the spirit of truth. We have seen reality, and it has made us oblivious of lesser goals. So the first group of people seem to be having a hard time continuously suffering and not knowing how to get out of their pain and suffering. Their fear of hell has led them to a state of continuous misery. They're not curious. They just accept suffering and misery as the end of all beings. Even though they don't want to be in hell, they choose hell every day. Mm-hmm. Resistance to hell is actually the best way to stay in hell. Not wanting to suffer is the shortest road to suffering. And it is the very moment of pushing things, of resisting things, of trying to get away from them that generates pain. So curiosity doesn't reject pain. And just, I'm experiencing pain. Is there something I generated? Is there something, right? It just accepts it as is, not as a concrete fact of life, but just as it's there. What's it mean to me? Not coming from and we're going to talk. The old ones gave me messages about this coming from a place of fixedness. So the second group of people are always looking for happiness, doing all kinds of things so that the day will come when the doors of heaven finally open, they can enter with glory and live happily ever after. So trying to get out of hell and trying to get to heaven both produce more suffering, perpetuate the anguish. So this is a dilemma of always acting from the perspective of good and bad. That is omnipresent in our lives because we don't understand the essence and the curiosity of looking for it inside without needing the incentive of pleasure or the avoidance of pain. Essence, curiosity is there. It's experiencing, no rejection, no acceptance, just there. If you're seeking something, you're not accepting what is there right at the moment. So to seek truth for its own sake, not seeking for pleasure, for the outcome of pleasure or the avoidance of pain, is curiosity. So the third group of people who saw the spirit of truth were those who endured much, and curiosity kept them living fully so that their faces were shining with joy because just of the joy of living, just of the joy of being alive and being able to be curious every day.
Wow.
So on that, we'll go into our messages from the old ones because it all ties in together.
These two groups of people, where do they come from? What groups are they?
That was just a story, but if you look around, that was an allegorical story, a Sufi story that comes from the time of Jesus. But if you look around, you'll see these people all around you. And like we talked about when our three selves, our uhane, our unahipili, or our ku, our subconscious, it's always looking to avoid pain. So that's kind of a natural instinct in us. The constant looking for paradise, but looking for it outside of ourselves. So if you just start looking around, you'll see these two groups of people everywhere. The people that are so busy trying to avoid hell, they're in it. And the people that are always looking, waiting for the gates of heaven to open so they can live happily ever after instead of living happily ever after here.
Yeah.
Because they're not noting their choices. They're not noting their choices of every time they've been led to the fountain to drink, that they've drank of joy and happiness, right? Of pleasure, of paradise.
Exactly. They get shown that paradise all the time and they don't go to it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So about words from the old ones. Ishmukane, Nukua, and Laka.
Okay, let's get
about
ready for
polarity,
that.
the congregating together. The the principle of magnetism, right? They want us to know that as long as we are still married to the paradigm of protagonist and antagonist, which would be hero and villain, we will constantly continue to make ourselves the protagonist, the hero. The more evil we paint our antagonists, the better and more powerful we look as protagonists and heroes. So in an effort to gain power and influence, you human beings move into discrediting, dismissing, disregarding, dehumanizing, detaching from, and demonizing those whom you perceive to be opposite of you. Now, if you thought we were going to say opposed to you, we want you to understand that because of your precognitive commitments to something that's not yours, you automatically perceive anything opposite of you as opposed to you, even before opposition has been voiced. This is the danger of squaring off in duality, or what you humans call polarity, because you think it's polarity, but it's not, it's duality. So when you square off in duality, you make the other side the enemy. And this makes finding the middle ground or the gradient flow very difficult. Because in terms of duality, to find the middle ground, one of you has to lose ground, right? So when you camp out on your poles, when you've circled the wagons and are protecting yourself by withdrawing inside them, you know where that term circling the wagons comes from, right?
No, I don't.
The pioneers coming across America, when they stopped to camp for the night, they would circle the wagons, put their covered wagons in a circle and stay inside it to protect themselves from the Indians.
Oh, it's like a kind of like a magical thing they did?
No, it was a purely physical thing. They put their wagons in a circle, and they would camp inside that circle, and so that their covered wagons would protect them. They placed the wagons.
Okay, I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what circling the wagons means.
Okay.
You're protecting yourself by withdrawing inside them, and so there is no room for that which differs from you. This duality, it's not polarity, it's duality, creates clubs of various sorts. Your national cliques, your sororities, your fraternities of identity. Part of the rites of initiation into these clubs, as well, our rules for sustained membership is not fraternizing with the other side. Fraternizing implies more than simply not communicating with or communing with. Membership on one pole requires a misunderstanding of, a mistrust of, and lack of empathy toward the other pole. Any show of compassion, any ability to clearly articulate the other's concerns, any recognition of the hurt or loss that your agenda may inflict on the other side is not allowed as part of the discourse. That would be experienced as betrayal. The way then that you show your loyalty is not so much adhering to the pole or platform of your group's identity or agenda, is how you separate yourself from and not identify with those on the other pole. You must remember that whatever you all find so horrifically irritating about the other is exactly what the other finds horrifically irritating about you. So when you don't face your own demons, you see them acted out by others. And this wholesale practice of projecting your unhealed parts, because when you move to make someone else wrong, you're projecting your unhealed parts onto them, means that you never assume responsibility for doing your healing work. So instead of going deeper into healing, you spend your time trying to influence the other side to do its healing work so you don't have to do your own, or to progress to where you think you are in consciousness. When you polarize, when you camp out on your poles, you're actually not conscious. So there is nothing to progress to.
Right.
So the consciousness that obtains sustains. So if a military presence is integral to the establishment of democratic protocols, then a military presence will be necessary to sustain these protocols. So the notion of global domination through imperialism and colonialism is on its deathbed. So do not be fooled by establishment fixtures that you all were taught to value as humans. Institutions that you believe are the bedrock of society that you think are permanent and fixed, like churches, denominations, the Catholic denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the corporations. They're all institutions of global domination, imperialism, and colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to look at the living beings, the entities of life that work with you and through you. In your country governments, your leaders always reflect their constituents. So any current administration is just a pure representation of a consciousness that has been lurking in your psyche. So now it's manifest in full exposure and blossoming. Especially when you vote, when we as humans vote them into office. All egos are running amok. It's a consciousness in which we have been made in which we, the old ones, the ancient grandmothers, have been made a small-minded, narrow God who serves the plans and desires of scarcity, superiority, domination over. So we want you to remember that it's you humans who repeat history with each daily choice you make. And it's time to move away from the sense that your safety comes from your ability to separate from and dominate over your so-called foes or enemies. It's time to separate. It's time to walk away from the idea that y'all humans have enemies, because there's only one of you here. You're all one in us. Your human culture now is fixated on a fix-it concept. When something appears to be wrong, you immediately go into trying to figure out what human intervention is needed so the outcome is in alignment with your desires. And it's time for you. We want you to start asking yourself, is the causation in alignment with my desires? What did the event that I caused, was that in alignment with my outcome desires? And is it my desire to lead with an open heart, or with my breastplate, my shield, and my sword, my armor? We want you to truly understand that if the underlying consciousness, the energy pattern that resulted in the net effect does not change, there will just be another outer manifestation that resembles all the others. Same problems, different symptoms. So it's easier for you humans to look out from the standpoint of fixing something that's wrong than to take a look at how you may be part of what is wrong. So can you humans accept that the things you're trying to fix are the effect of combinations of decisions that you have contributed to? Can you accept that people aren't basically evil, that they aren't out to deliberately hurt you, that underneath it all, everybody is just doing whatever they think they need to do to hedge against loss, or to assure that the drama and scripts they have written come to being? You humans are so single-minded and single-focused that you do not take into consideration the needs and desires of others, even those of you who give lip service to the concept of the next 7 generations. So it's time for reconciliation, and reconciliation simply means you must consider things from the perspective of others. In your human society, your defense mechanisms and weapons are quite sophisticated. The way your countries act in their foreign policies is merely a reflection of how you individuals act in your individual family. You, specifically America, have advocated for years now the notion of preemptive strike. So you see in so many humans that you do not even wait until you've been hurt or attacked. You just bring out your defense mechanisms. You attack with your defenses before anyone can ever attack you, because you're just positive they're going to attack you, and you don't know that. What are your defenses? Distancing, self-righteousness, refusing to listen, getting more people on your side, refusing to accept that there could be an interpretation other than your own. You don't arrive at polarization as a result of conflict. You choose to polarize so that you can instigate conflict, preemptive strike.
Wow.
We want you to understand that there are no two people at opposite poles. There are only people positioned at various places along the continuum of expression of the flow of polarity. When you understand this, you understand there is nothing fixated about the state they or you are in, and now you experience Ayni reciprocity. So the time has come for you humans to move beyond the lip service to what it means to be one, to be love, to be Munai, to be Aloha, to be Ayni, to be the Tao, and to become living, breathing examples of it. We did not create you to be divided against each other so much at all. You are all born to be part of the rich tapestry of life that we continually sing into being. And we want you to get this.
Mm-hmm. And well, I think you just said the most punctual thing you could ever say. And I would invite anyone that heard this to not be gray about it, to not be, I mean, if you don't agree, please speak up, say what you feel. If you do agree, please support this message getting through to other people. Don't just leave it like that, be part of it, do something about it. Whatever you think is the best thing to do, but do something about it. If you agree with this message, you probably noticed, anyone that heard this message, that there's nowhere else where to hear this message as it was presented. You won't find this, nobody speaking about this. You might find things that are closed, but they're all kind of missing something, and not here. I mean, or say that we're wrong and that you don't agree.
Well, that's creating. We're not out to create polarity, duality.
I don't think anybody would say that.
Right. There's just gradations. There's perception.
Just we in Spanish we have a saying: "Don't be lukewarm. Don't be lukewarmed." Right.
Right. There's actually a verse in the Bible that talks about that lukewarmness too. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and it's interesting because then it would kind of contradict, as in the principle, this polarity thing, this gradient thing. Don't be lukewarmed. But then you've described it. You can. I mean, also don't be cold and like closed, wagon closed. That's not being warm or cold. That's not what we want.
That's being defensive.
Don't be defensive.
Lukewarm, we consider the lukewarm to be a gradient between hot and cold, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
Which it is in the natural world. But for people to be lukewarm means you're fucking sitting on the fence.
Right. Just
with
it's like
a leg on each side, wanting to enjoy both sides, so you don't have to stand up and say yes for anything or say no.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's it. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
But just I want to get folks that are listening to this, involved in some kind of way. Come in and be part of this. Don't. I mean, if you like this, let us know. I don't know. We're not looking for shares or views. That's not our purpose. But it might help. So if you can do that at least, or otherwise you can do a lot more. So please please do something. Please don't just stand there and do nothing.
Our purpose is holding a vision of wholeness, of peace, of heaven on earth. Right? That's our of holding it, not just holding it, but allowing it to gestate and birth through us and become the reality.
And that requires a lot of work. That's the thing. We're used to a system where that I guess it thrives on the principle of the law of lesser effort. You know, where we have that naturally we're always looking to do, you know, the least effort, but to overcome all the problems and to grow as a humanity and as individuals, we must grow beyond the lesser effort, which is what capitalism really thrives on. You know, that they got everything lesser effort for all your lesser effort needs. They got something. So we have to go beyond that and start and do the work, you know, which is then more fun, I guess, than just sitting down and doing nothing and watching life go through. You know, don't you want to be part of the team that is playing in the, you know, and doing something and getting somewhere and healing and growing. So that's what it should be seen like, is as an effort, as something fun, something, you know, that is more fun. That's what I try to teach my kids, you know. Don't see things in life as boring, like things that you have to do. I mean, you have to cook and clean, right? You can't get rid of that ever. Like, you have to cook and clean. There's no way around not doing that. Except
that's part of
capitalism found a way. I mean, if you have enough money, you know, you probably have to suffer a whole lot to get there, and it's probably a lot worse than cleaning and cooking. But you can get to a point where you can pay somebody to do that. Or you can just buy throwaway microwave stuff, and you don't have to do that. You know, your body's going to be suffering it, somebody's going to be suffering it, and it's just not it's really not the lesser effort. There's also another saying that I like a lot, which is the lazy one always works the double. That's a saying in Spanish. It turns out to be harder. You end up doing more work, so it doesn't make sense trying to do it the easy way. You have to do it the right way, the good way.
Well,
I'm just trying to comment something and trying to get involved here and get people involved. It was all so beautiful. And are we done with the governance part of
for
this?
now? We're going to move on next week to the sustain, because remember, the great principle which science has defined as God must create, constitute, govern, sustain, and contain. So we're going down the sustain branch this time. 5.
All right, sustain. So let's look forward to what that is going to teach us, and let people know that we do this every single week on Wednesdays at 7:45 Central Standard Time. If you want to join live, otherwise it's either live or recorded in Rumble and YouTube and Facebook, and you'll find us anywhere at Aloha Ayni, A-Y-N-I, but that's Aloha and Ayni share the same A. T-A-O Living, Tao Living. Aloha Ayni Tao Living.com is the website. Aloha Ayni Tao Living in Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Everywhere you'll find it in Rumble. We'll soon activate again a BitChute channel because it kind of flows better through the non-monopoly channels, this type of information. But we're just trying to share it everywhere and make it as available for people as possible. So join us next week, and we'll be seeing this amazing teaching about the sustain branch of the great principle. So we had the word from the elders. We also have at the end of the session like a message. You already shared the message. So I guess there's nothing else. We're done.
No.
Already. So I have to go downstairs to finish the live stream. Decided to come here into the room to
right.
avoid noise, and I guess that was not good for the signal. But well, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you, Ingrid, for your teachings. And see you soon.